Hello to my YouTube family. Hope you guys are fine. I welcome you to my channel Fund Facts. Today, I am back with another amazing video. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can click the bell icon so that you never miss a video from us. In this video, we will be talking about 5 huge Roth IRA mistakes that can cost thousands. So without further ado, let's get into it. An IRA recharacterization allows an individual to switch an IRA contribution from one type of IRA, regular or Roth, to the other, or to undo a conversion from a Roth to a regular IRA. If one makes a mistake, one can reverse the original decision. This is effectively going back in time and doing it right. Some IRA mistakes are easy to make. If an individual contributed to a Roth IRA or converted from a regular IRA to Roth IRA and then suffered losses during the financial crisis, it probably makes sense to undo that original decision. If an individual contributed to a traditional IRA and then, due to an unexpected increase in income, finds that the contribution is non-deductible, a switch to a Roth IRA may be desirable. It does not have to be a mistake. One's investment goals and level of income may simply have changed, making an investment in the other type of IRA more appropriate. Are you confused on what we are talking about? If yes, then let me explain it with an example. Assume on April 23, 2008, an individual made a 2008 contribution. The tax return would be due on July 18, 2009, but with the automatic 6. Roth IRA versus traditional IRA. Financial planners often advise their clients to first take advantage of employer-sponsored 401k plans, especially those with matching employer contributions. They often recommend next that clients consider a traditional or Roth IRA, depending on their current eligibility and tax bracket. Generally, the traditional IRA tends to be preferable to the Roth IRA if one expects to be in a lower tax bracket during retirement versus the contribution years. This preference could be impacted by the theoretical or the practical assumptions one could make as to the tax bracket effect, minimum distribution requirements, and the impact of withdrawals on the amount of Social Security benefits taxed. This research compares the traditional and the Roth IRA, examining both the theoretical and practical assumptions of client behavior. The results indicate that the best choice between the types of IRAs depends on whether the investor's actual behavior is consistent with theory or practice. The decision of how to invest IRA assets is complicated because the law does not allow taxpayers to hold certain investments in an IRA. CPAs will find little formal guidance on IRA investments from the IRS or the Department of Labor. IRA investment guidelines generally are limited to listing what a taxpayer cannot purchase, including life insurance and collectibles, such as artworks, antiques, and most precious metals. Foreign investments should be limited to ADRs and domestically sponsored mutual funds. Real estate, including leveraged real estate, generally is permitted in an IRA if the investor follows certain common-sense guidelines, such as finding a trustee that specializes in holding real estate and other unusual IRA assets. The CPA should also encourage the client to obtain a letter ruling from the IRS in advance. Self-dealing or engaging in a prohibited transaction can taint any IRA transaction. Transactions must be made at arm's length and not involve the IRA owner or a member of his or her family. To avoid such problems, the CPA should emphasize investments for which established markets already exist. IRA owners also must be careful not to incur unrelated business income. IRC Sections 511 to 514 allow the IRS to tax an exempt entity that conducts business unrelated to its original purpose. Mistake number 1. Not using IRA. A major debate exists on whether expanding tax-favored savings accounts, such as individual retirement accounts, or IRAs, will increase national savings. Much of the empirical debate has centered on whether IRA contributions before the Tax Reform Act of 1986 represented new savings or merely reshuffled assets. We find no evidence that households financed their IRA contributions from reductions in consumption, at least initially. We find evidence that households financed their IRA contributions from existing savings, or from savings that would have been done anyway. Our results indicate that, at most, 9% of IRA contributions represented net additions to national saving. Recent legislative proposals have included restoring individual retirement accounts to their pre-1987 eligibility rules. Whether IRAs are simply taxed windfalls with no effect on saving, or whether IRAs stimulate saving, is a crucial issue in evaluating the effectiveness of such proposals. In this paper, I review the previous literature on IRAs as well as present new evidence on the saving behavior of IRA contributors. In brief, IRA contributors are wealthier and older than the general population. There is no clear consensus from structural economic models on whether IRA contributions are new saving or old, shuffled savings. Nevertheless, IRA contributions during the 1980s were remarkably active savers. For example, the typical IRA contribution was estimated to have an increased total financial wealth in real terms by 71% between 1982 to 1986. Individual retirement accounts may have induced saving through psychological factors not normally present in orthodox economic models, but evidence on such factors is speculative rather than conclusive. Mistake number 2. Early withdrawal. Early withdrawals from retirement accounts are a double-edged sword because withdrawals reduce retirement resources, but they also allow individuals to smooth consumption when they experience demographic and economic shocks. Using tax data, we show that pre-retirement withdrawals increased between 2004 and 2010, especially after 2007, but early withdrawal rates are substantial relative to new contributions in all those years. Early withdrawal events are strongly correlated with shocks to income and marital status, and lower income taxpayers are more likely to experience the types of shocks associated with early withdrawals and more likely to have a taxable withdrawal when they experience a given shock. Our findings indicate that penalized withdrawals are significantly more likely among households that experience adverse shocks, and that the effect of shocks is amplified for households with low levels of non-retirement financial wealth. In particular, we find that job loss, income shocks, divorce, and home purchases increase the likelihood of early ESP withdrawals by an average of 3 to 10 points each, with significantly stronger increases among the poorest households. We conclude that a significant portion of early withdrawals from retirement accounts reflects consumption smoothing behavior by liquidity-constrained households who experience financial shocks rather than squandering of pension assets. Mistake number 3. Not contributing. IRAs were included in ERISA to ensure that those without an employer plan at work had some way to save on a tax-preferred basis. Today, IRAs are primarily a receptacle for rollovers from employer plans and, among those contributing to an IRA, more than half are also contributing to an employer plan. It is time to turn IRAs back into an active savings vehicle by auto-enrolling those without an employer plan into these accounts with the ability to opt out. Ideally, such an auto-IRA policy would be a federal government initiative, but, absent federal action, a number of states are stepping into the breach. Mistake number 4. Penny stocks. When considering penny stocks, investors and experts in the field recognize the low market price of shares and its correlation to low market capitalization. Market capitalization, or market cap, is the total dollar market value of all of a company's outstanding securities. Since penny stocks are inexpensive, investors often buy large quantities of shares without spending much money. This tendency makes the penny stock market volatile. Volatility is a statistical measure of the dispersion of returns for a given security or market index. Typically, the higher the volatility, the greater the risk in investing in said securities. Transversely, the lower the volatility, the safer the investment is. Volatility can also be understood as the frequency of large changes in the value of a given security in either direction. This is directly correlated to the price action of security, which, when talking about penny stocks, can change more rapidly than that of a large cap stock. The volatile nature of penny stocks also leaves these companies open to potential manipulation by stock promoters and pump and dump schemes. Oftentimes, investors are led to believe that the ability to purchase large quantities of shares at low prices will result in greater returns, which makes them more susceptible. I would recommend not getting involved with any type of penny stock when Storm testified at the hearing. It's a scam. All it does is cost you money, hard-earned money. Mistake number 5. Excessive fees. Individual retirement account assets in the US are worth $7.5 trillion. This represents 31% of total retirement assets in the market, with 34% of US households owning an IRA. Banks, investment houses, brokerages, online trading firms, and other entities all want a piece of that gargantuan pie. That is why where you choose to open your individual retirement account can make a huge difference in how much money you accumulate. Since returns are presented net of fees, investors do not see how much they would have earned with lower fees. That means many account holders are allowing a sizable piece of their retirement assets to get eaten up by excessive IRA fees. People recognize the savings in a 1% drop in their mortgage rate and will refinance to get it, but do not consider the impact an extra 1% in fees has on their retirement nest egg. Paying 1 or 2 percentage points in fees may seem trivial, but the impact is huge. Paying 1% annually in fees on a $100,000 IRA balance could cost you approximately $28,000 over 20 years. Taking a look at fees on retirement accounts is critical, whether you already have an IRA, are looking to roll over money from a retirement savings account such as a 401k at a former employer, or are just starting to save for retirement. As an account owner, you should understand the fees you are paying and what other options may be available. Now you must have an idea of 5 huge Roth IRA mistakes. If you have any questions, you can let us know in the comments below. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share with your family and friends. Hoping to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching my video. Stay safe and goodbye.